Welcome to the Ausländer. So, welcome to a new episode of The Ausländer. Today we have here one of my friends, an ex-roommate in Frankfurt, Alex. Welcome, Alex.
Yeah. Hi. Nice to see you here. I'm glad to be here. Yeah.
Cool. So Alex is original from Bitola, Macedonia. He lived in, I don't know if now I'm switching countries first, but I think it's Spain, then Austria, and then Germany. We met back in Barcelona. We worked together in Barcelona for some time. Then we were sent nearly at the same time, or at the same time actually, to Germany, to Frankfurt in the same project. So we continued working together, but we also decided to go and live together in Frankfurt. So we were flatmates for a little bit more than 1 year, I would say, around that. Was the order correct? It was so Macedonia, Spain, and then from Spain, Austria, and then
back to Spain. Yes.
Okay. So you went from Macedonia to Spain to Mallorca, actually, first, or to Barcelona?
No, actually, in 2011, first I went to Mataró, which is close to Barcelona, for 3 months. Then I came back to finish my studies. Then I went to Austria, and then from Austria I went to Mallorca. Yeah,
I see. So you were living in Bitola, you moved to Mataró, did 3 months in Mataró because of study reasons, like a kind of exchange, Erasmus, internship,
yes.
Yeah. And then you went back to Macedonia. From Macedonia, you moved to Austria, and from Austria, you didn't go back to Macedonia, but you jumped directly to Mallorca, then Barcelona, and finally Frankfurt, and now back to Barcelona.
Yep.
Correct. Well, that's a quite long journey. So first question, of course, I would say from Mataró, it's clear that you go for studies. After that, what is the reason that makes you going to Austria?
Well, it was the same. When I was finishing my studies, I applied to many different opportunities. So one of them was an internship in Austria, which was, it was supposed to be like 6-7 months with possibility to extend. But I also applied for a scholarship to do a master's studies. And in the end, I got accepted to both. I got accepted for internship in Austria and to the scholarship in Mallorca. So I decided to make the internship in Austria shorter, for 3 months only, to be able to go to Mallorca to study.
Crazy. So in Austria, you were only there for 3 months, so more or less the same time that you were in Mataró. Okay.
Yes.
Nice. Which city in Austria were you?
Vienna.
Yeah. Cool. And then you started, so you did a short internship in Austria, and then you jumped to Mallorca to do a master. Master in what?
So I finished computer science and engineering, bachelor's degree, and then I did the master in information technologies. There's this there used to be a master in Mallorca called information technologies applied to tourism. So yeah.
Well, like everything in Mallorca.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's a rather interesting choice, actually. Just like from a lot of places in Spain, I don't know a lot of people who went from outside of Mallorca to study to Mallorca, for example, which is something that a lot of people from Mallorca end coming to Barcelona to do some studies. the other way around. I never met anyone actually who studied in Mallorca besides you. So that's also quite funny. That the only person that I know from Mallorca who studied in Mallorca was from Macedonia, actually. What about the cultural difference? Like, I mean, I suppose back in the time you were beginning of 20s, 20 something at that point of time. So still student life, but it was a cultural shock to switch from Macedonia to countries like, I don't know, Austria. I mean, I suppose Austria, it's more about the weather, but like Spain or Austria, did you feel this difference?
No, I mean, I was in Austria during the summer, so the weather was actually perfect. It was hot, was nice, yeah. But I have to say that before all these internships, I was part of a student organization back in Macedonia, where we hosted a lot of international students from all around the world. So I was already being exposed to cultural differences, and it wasn't that big of a shock for me. But with that being said, there were still some small cultural shocks, maybe. Yeah, I would have to say.
Were you speaking Spanish, Catalan, or German when you moved to that countries at the very beginning?
Well, I studied German all throughout high school and a little bit in university, but I don't speak much. And I have I would say A2 level, and I have maintained that level for the years. But even though I've tried to, over the years, to learn more, it wasn't successful. But as for Spanish, since I was applying for placements in Spain, I did a course in Macedonia for 6 months, like basic. And then, for example, when I was staying in Austria, I was hanging out with Spanish and South American people, so I was practicing Spanish with them. Yeah, and then when I moved, yeah. Well, I mean, the same thing happened when I lived in Frankfurt for 1 year. I ended up improving my Catalan and not German.
Yeah, so that's one of the topics that I wanted to discuss, actually, and it's that actually you not only speak Spanish, but you've been in Barcelona and in Mallorca for some years, and I must say that you have a really impressive Catalan also level, which is something that sometimes it doesn't happen, that people from coming to Catalonia or to Mallorca or to Valencia also learn Catalan, because with the Spanish you can survive. But was that something that it was clear for you from the very beginning, or it was something that you found afterwards when you arrived to Barcelona or when you arrived to Mallorca to say, hey, oh, there is people speaking another language in here?
Yeah, well, actually I already knew, because as it happens, with these things, like with these student organizations, there was one Catalan guy I met in my hometown in Bitterl when he came for an internship, like some years before I went to Austria. And then when I moved to Austria, we were there at the same time. So we continued hanging out. And he's Catalan. He told me about the Catalan language, because of course before that I wasn't aware that there are other languages in Spain besides Spanish. So, and actually he always said like, hey, like you should learn Catalan so we can speak freely, because if you speak Spanish, a lot of people understand you, and if you speak Catalan, it's like more covert.
Secret language.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're speaking Elfic, yeah.
Yeah. But So, for example, when I moved to Mallorca, I did an intensive Spanish course for a month. Yeah, 4 hours a day. It's really intense.
Not bad.
And
For
then
how long?
For 1 month.
1 month, 4 hours per day, including weekends or without?
No weekends. No.
Well, even with that, it's crazy amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I continued doing like twice a week or something. And so after I had like a certain level of Spanish, I said, yeah, maybe I should start learning Mallorquin, like they call it there. And I couldn't find so many options for studying. Not as many as there are in Catalonia, for example. And also the language didn't seem so attractive to me because whenever I heard it speaking, it sounded weird to me, kind of like, when I would hear old ladies speaking it sounded like Chinese. Also because their accent is very
strong,
closed, so they don't pronounce the vowels. Yeah. But then when I moved to Barcelona, I heard Catalan from Barcelona. I said, wow, I can understand half of this.
I already have a base, no? Yeah, mainly because in Barcelona, everyone speaks Spanish. But yeah, sure.
No, but yeah, even when they speak Catalan, they use Spanish words, so.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, the influence especially in big cities like Barcelona, for example, in Catalonia, it's strong. Like you really feel that a lot of people has a big influence from Spanish when they are speaking Catalan, and that I suppose in your case it helps a lot to introduce Catalan when you already knew Spanish. For how long you were in Mallorca? Actually, it was a master, so I suppose like 2 years, 3 years.
No, well, it was supposed to be 1 year, but I stayed for 2 years because I also did an internship there. I got a scholarship from Telefónica, and I stayed for 1 more year to finish my master thesis and to look for a job.
So the change between Mallorca and Barcelona was mainly because you find a job in Barcelona.
Yes.
Exactly.
Actually, funny thing, I got 2 offers at the same time, one in Mallorca and one in Barcelona. And I chose the one in Barcelona. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, you are knowing your history of movement through different countries. I think it's a mark that you have that you need to move from time to time. So I suppose it was also like the inquietude or the movement inside of your body saying, okay, let's try something new. Let's move somewhere else. Then in Barcelona, you stayed quite a long time after that, before going to Frankfurt.
Let's 14, 18, like almost 4 years. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of years, like to get into Barcelona and the moods of Barcelona. And now it's rather a weird situation that I've never encountered here in the podcast, that the person who I'm interviewing was a migrant or an expat inside of my city. So it opens a lot of questions. Like, I don't know what was there is a typical question that I ask here, which is like a comparison between the hardest or the best moment that you encountered, let's say in Mallorca, Barcelona, that you can remember from that years.
Well, I would say that the hardest is actually in Vienna, because when I arrived, so I went through a student organization. Okay. So it's called IASTE. IAESTE. I will send you a link later if you want to include it in the notes. And they normally organize stuff for the students that come do these exchanges. So they pick you up from the airport or the train station, they take you to your accommodation, and they put you in contact with the other students that are there so that you can hang out together and so on. And when I arrived in Vienna, someone picked me up from the train station, took me to my dorm, and the next day they met with me at the dorm as well and showed me the way to the office. So that was it. And then for first, I don't know how many days, 3, 4, 5 days, to me it felt like an eternity. I didn't meet anyone, didn't meet the other people because the locals were busy with exams, so they didn't communicate with us. And I just went to work and came back. But yeah, at work, I didn't really talk with my boss. He was just giving me tasks to read stuff and learn stuff, and that was it, more or less. So when they finally put us in touch, and I met some of the other students that were doing an exchange there, turns out they were also staying in the same dorm. Fun fact. So we could have met on day one.
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't stop talking, because I hadn't talked in 5 days.
How old were you when you went to Austria?
I was, let's say, 12, 23.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
23, about to be 24. Yeah.
So no social interaction at the age of the 23 for 5 days.
I was going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I suppose you were expecting, you were part of a student group in Macedonia, so you were doing this task back at home, and you were most probably doing it in a different way. And then you arrive to Austria and you feel that they just drop you in front of your dorm room to sleep, and that's all. That's all that you get. I completely understand that. Especially in the first days, I also remember from Frankfurt and when you are like feeling, in that case in Frankfurt, we were going together and that saves a lot of things. Let's say Juanca was already there also, but I remember we were staying for the first weeks on, before finding our apartment, we were staying in Airbnbs or apartments separately wise. And we were meeting in the center because it was the only point in the city that we knew, and going together to the office. And it brings you to a point of, okay, at least I know someone in here, so it definitely gives some point. Do you have any super bright moment, best moment that you remember from that time, either in Vienna or Mallorca, or that you say, okay, wow, this I remember it with love, let's say like this?
Well, there are so many moments, I have to say. Right now, most of my adult life, I've been living abroad, So a lot of things happened here. I don't know. I met really good friends, and with whom I still keep in touch to this day. But I don't know. I think the best moments would be, I don't know, some great parties we had together and some nice concerts.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Question, now that you commented, you've been out of your motherland, let's say like this, the country where you were raised as a kid, let's say like this, you've been as an adult most of this time out of your home somehow. Do you miss it? Or it's something that you consider at some point of your life to go back to Macedonia, to live permanently there?
Well, when I was 18, I moved from my hometown to the capital to study. So I studied in Skopje, the capital, for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So in case I stayed in Macedonia, I would have stayed in the capital. I wouldn't have gone back to my hometown where my parents live, because there are simply more opportunities there. Most of my friends were there by that time, so yeah, it made sense. But to be honest, I don't feel like I'm far from home because I'm always, just a plane ride away. I go back pretty often. So to me, it feels like I'm just, in a different state of of the whole European Union, and it's still home. It's actually I've always stayed in the same time zone, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Even though Macedonia and Spain are on the both sides of the time zone, like on the opposite sides, but still it's the same time zone. So in a way, it makes it easier. I never have to think, oh, what time is it now at home, and stuff like that.
It's curious because if you take it from a map, from a cartography, for example, now here in Athens, we are 1 hour advanced than Macedonia, and that makes no sense because, for example, Bitola or Skopje, it's much farther east than Athens. And the same happens with Spain. No, at the end, if you put it in a reference with UK, for example,
exactly
by logic of the map, let's say, or by being strict with the map, it doesn't belong to that time zone. But it's true. It's just like it's the two extremes of it. On the other hand, there is some things that bind you because, of course, you've created some relationships to Barcelona, for example, because you came back from Frankfurt to Barcelona. You didn't decide to go back from Frankfurt to Macedonia, for example, or from Frankfurt to another place of where you have lived before. It's Barcelona. It's Barcelona what you consider your home now, let's say like this, like what your base place.
Yeah, it especially became clear when I was in Frankfurt because during my stay in Frankfurt, I was able to travel a lot. Mm-hmm. I went many times that year to Macedonia as well, but I also traveled to Barcelona whenever I could. And every time I came back to Barcelona, I thought how much I like it here, and that I definitely want to come back and live here. Nice. Even though I wouldn't have mind 6 more months in Germany, but yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, I suppose every country has its benefits and its like bad points, let's say like this. But it's an easy movement. No, I mean, you already lived. I think that when you were in Frankfurt, if I remember correctly, you didn't even like lose your flat in Barcelona. So you were like just sub-renting the room, and then just it was an easy way back, let's say like this. It was not a complex thing.
True.
There is something that it comes to your mind like automatically when you think, okay, I miss this from Macedonia, like food or, I mean, of course, your parents, I can imagine that family, it's one of the points, but there is something that you would say, okay, wow, this fucking, I don't know, food that I cannot find in Barcelona. I miss it so much.
Definitely. I mean, there's over the years, it's become easier and easier to find food here in Spain, like from the Balkans in general. But yeah, of course, I miss the cheese that we have there. Like there's this really nice sheep cheese, which is feta style, but it's not exactly feta. Yeah. And I miss these pastries made from a phyllo dough and with cheese or meat or spinach. Yeah. And in a way, that's what I liked about Germany, is because I could, there are so many Balkan people living in Germany that all these things are easier to find there.
Yeah, it's true. I remember that when we were living together, you used to cook a lot of pastries, for example, and it was not difficult to find in supermarkets, and it was not difficult. Like you didn't need to go to a specialized supermarket to get these kind of things. Like it was normal to have them. Yeah.
And I miss my mom's cooking, of course.
I think everyone does miss their mom's cooking. That's a generic thing. One question that it's also like really interesting from this perspective, it's when you go to Germany, it's because of professional reasons. It's clear you already had in mind, because you said I wouldn't have in mind like 6 months more in Germany. You were having in mind already, like really clear that was a temporary move, that you will never stay in Germany for longer than a certain period of time when you move there.
Well, when I first moved there, I didn't know, because maybe I wouldn't have liked it and I would have came back after 3 months or after 6 months. But over the course of the year, I grew to like it, but at the same time, I realized that I liked Barcelona more. So
happy to hear that. I mean, I miss the beer from Frankfurt. I must accept that.
I mean, I also, well, it helped a lot that I had all these friends, a great roommate and everything, so to keep me there as well.
Thanks for the reference. Quick question. I think now it's this weird from a person from Barcelona, close to Barcelona, to ask this. Do you have something that you really don't like from Barcelona that you say, okay, this is like...
Well, it's difficult to say. Because I like even the bad things about Barcelona, like I like let's put it this way. What I don't like is the tourism, to be honest, the massification of it. Like when I first came here in 2011, 12, 13, I used to enjoy going to all the touristic places, let's call them, to La Rambla, to Parguel, to the Sagrada Familia, I used to go very often to Montjuic to watch the magic fountains and drink a beer there. And there were tourists, but it was not that crowded, or at least it didn't seem to me. Nowadays, I avoid all these places because it's just simply too crowded.
Yeah. I mean, I think also over 10 years, Barcelona changed a lot in this sense. Like the massification of tourism that happened, it's much, much more growing and growing every time. And of course, there is other consequences of tourism in Barcelona. It's also like the increase of rental apartments, for example, and all these topics. But it's interesting. I mean, I don't think it's only you who has done this adaptation, like only you that coming from outside like to go to these touristic places. I think there is a lot of people from Barcelona who was normally going to these places and now they are avoiding them because it's too much.
And there is another thing actually that is that I really don't like, and that is the apartments in Barcelona.
Why?
Like the way the old Spanish architecture, I would like to call it. They are, all of them have like long corridors and small rooms.
But you mean interior, in the interior of the buildings? So the apartments itself, not the buildings itself. Okay.
No, not yes. And the fact that they don't have a terrace in Barcelona where the weather is so nice. I mean, how many, like when I was in Germany, we were looking for a flat. Okay, the first flat that we stayed didn't have a terrace, but I knew so many people that did have a terrace. And then the second one we rented did have a terrace and a barbecue and everything. And that's so difficult to find in Barcelona. And here, I think I was impressed actually in Germany of how, even though the weather is not as good as here, that they make the most of it when it's good, and they use it to go to the terrace to do barbecues. I mean, we did so many barbecues at work even. Come on.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what we used to call the photosynthesis of the German. Whenever the sun is going out, everyone is going out to do the photosynthesis, you know. But yeah, it's absolutely true. It's really difficult to find a balcony, even not a terrace, like a small balcony where you can fit a chair in Barcelona. It's difficult to find. So I completely agree with that. Definitely. Like, if I would need to say that, besides, also, I don't know if you noticed that, and I don't know if the case of your apartment, but a lot of the buildings are old and they are not really well isolated in terms of temperature. So in summer, it's a heater, like absolutely hot, and in winter, it's absolutely cold in no time. So it makes things really difficult.
Yeah, I didn't want to pile up, but of course that bothers me a lot as well.
Yeah. Just maybe making just a step to Germany. Do you remember any of the things that you have in Germany in terms of like lifestyle or whatever that you miss being in Barcelona right now?
Of course, heating and wooden floors.
Yeah,
I mean, okay, that's on me, because I could move and I could find an apartment that has all those amenities in Barcelona. It's true, but I would have to pay a lot more rent.
Definitely.
But that's something that you don't have to look specifically for in Germany. It's the default for everybody. Like, all the apartments have heating and wooden floors. So, for example, and good isolation. Yeah. And here it's like something special, something extra you have to pay extra for.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Now, we've talked about tourism, we've talked about food, we've talked about, let's talk about people. How did you feel? Like, you lived in multiple places. How did you feel like welcomed in these places? How easy it was for you to integrate to these different places where you are, like, considering that you've been in multiple countries, and some of them are rather different, I suppose, culturally wise from Macedonia?
Yeah, well, let me start this way. In Austria, I was a short time, but even in that short time, I didn't make any Austrian friends. All the friends I made there were international exchange students like me. So we were in the same situation, so we bonded. I mean, it's not that we didn't met any Austrian people, but they were just, I found that they're closed off. So 3 months is not enough time to really become friends with someone, with an Austrian person, especially. And then Germany, I would say the same. I wasn't there long enough, and most of our colleagues at work were international as well. So it's kind of different. But I can tell you about the Spanish people, in the differences in Mallorca and in Barcelona, and what I've experienced when traveling in Spain. So I have to say that both Catalan people from Catalonia and from Mallorca are very also closed and reserved. Not as much as Austrian people, but compared to the rest of Spain, they are. For example, when I joined the company here in Barcelona, Worldline, for the first month, I didn't really talk to anybody except for work related stuff. I didn't really fit in immediately. It was after a month that already, some people started talking to me and said, hey, like, do you want to come to have breakfast with us in the morning and socialize?
Big breakfast in Worldline. We were eating a lot during that time working at Worldline. I think like the breakfasts were not small things.
Well, actually, I joined in the summer, so it was already summer working hours. And back in 2014, nobody was staying for lunch at the office. Everybody was leaving at 3 to have lunch at home, so the only break you had was for breakfast.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Mallorca was the same. In Mallorca, I was an exchange student. So in the beginning, I was hanging out with a lot of other exchange students. There was large groups from Italy, from Brazil, and from all around Europe. But I managed to make some Mallorcan friends from the studies as well.
Cool. Yeah, you compare that also like in a general way, like for example, you've traveled quite a lot in Spain as far as I know. So you've been to other regions like in the south and everything.
Yes.
And the kind of persons really differ a lot from one region to the other in Spain, like in every country at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. At the end, might be that the north people, especially like Catalan, Mallorcan people, we are a little bit more reserved in terms of
exactly.
Socializing or the first interaction. Let's call it like this. Yeah, that's totally a point. I think it's visible for a lot of expats who move to Barcelona.
But yeah, I would say that if and actually I didn't say this. Someone said it to me, and it's true. It's that if you make a Catalan friend, you've made a friend for life, because they're tough to break, but once you're in, you're in.
Yeah, they are loyal.
Yes.
Some of them, you will freak out. So yeah, one of the questions that I also do, and sometimes it brings troubles, but it's rather a funny question. Actually, I didn't even present it, the drink that we are drinking, but Alex, it's a fan of gin tonic in general. I would say also German beers. It's one of the things that we used to drink in our apartment, but gin tonics is one of them. So we are drinking both a nice balloon cup of gin tonic. Going back to the question that brings trouble sometimes, do you remember any crazy experience, any moment that you say, okay, this is out of my mind, or what I was imagining being living outside? You have been a lot of years, so I suppose you have some of these experiences.
Oh, crazy experience. Well, there are some crazy experiences, yes, I have to say. Yeah, well, one of them would be when me and some other friends had to drag one that passed out all the way to her home for like 15 blocks in Barcelona until to get her to her parents' house.
Okay. After a
Yeah.
party?
Well, yeah, after a party, but the thing is that we were, it was like 4 of us, and there was one Catalan girl, and she didn't drink that much, but she had the same amount of shots that we did. So she passed out. She was throwing up on the street. No taxi would pick us up. They don't like to carry drunk people that have the potential to vomit. So we ended up carrying this girl for 15 blocks until her house, like really dragging, like she couldn't stand on her own legs. And at the end, when we dragged her up 3 flights of stairs and we arrived in front of her door, we were about to ring the door for her parents to take her in. She just woke up and went in by herself.
It was all theater. I don't want to walk on.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, when I think about it now, it's funny, but back then we were kind of worried, and
yeah, of course, makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, when you came to Spain, and in Austria it was an internship, when you decided to move to Spain more in a permanent way, so when you were switching from a study situation to a work situation, you needed to apply for a specific visa. You needed to change between a student visa to a work visa to be able to work in Barcelona.
Yes. Yes, I did, but luckily this was handled by the company.
Okay. So before that, the visas were handled by university, or it was you who needed to apply for the visas in terms of a student?
Yeah, when I was a student, I had to apply by myself, but with the help of the university somehow.
And generically, it's easier to apply as a student than as a person who wants to work, or it's the process complex?
Well, it's always complex. The process is always complex, but let's put it this way. When I was applying it was actually really funny story when I was applying for the visa, because I started my internship in Austria in June, and I was supposed to go to Spain in September. And I was graduating the end of May. So on the day of my graduation, I had to go pick up my Austrian visa, get the passport from the Austrian embassy to the Spanish embassy. They had to make a copy, and then to take the passport back with me to be able to travel. And I actually had to come back later in the summer to get my Spanish visa once it was issued. So, yeah, it was a very stressful time, but it's definitely easier for studies, because if you have a scholarship to study, that means that you have the money to support yourself. They ask you for less paperwork. To be able to work, it's more complicated. And in my case, I was given a work permit on the basis of that I'm a highly qualified worker in an industry that has, lack of skilled workers and so on.
Okay.
But it's also on case-to-case basis, because I know, as you can imagine, I have a lot of friends that were in a similar situation, and I know that for each of them it was a different story. For some it was easier, for some it was more difficult. I know that some that didn't even weren't able to get the visa, so they couldn't start working.
Crazy. Now you achieve a full like resident situation in Spain after these whole years, or what it's the normal procedure? Like you can apply to a residentially permanent residence in Spain after some years, I suppose.
Yeah, you can apply for a permanent residence after 5 years, but that's only 5 years of working. And in case you studied before, that time only counts, the half of that time counts. So
if you study 4 years, that means 2 years, so you cannot apply. So it really needs to be, it's in terms of a coercion of the tax system then, somehow.
Yes.
Interesting. It's the current situation. I mean, for you right now, you don't need to apply for more visas in terms of working to Spain, because I suppose you've been enough time in Spain to be considered a resident of the country. In that sense, when you moved to Germany, you already were like in the middle. You were already like for quite a long time living in Spain. You moved to Germany, and then you come back to Spain. Does this affect your status as a person, as an expat in Spain, or for them it doesn't really matter that you spent 1 year abroad?
It matters, but luckily I applied for a permanent residency in Spain while I was still in Germany. So this way I would get it, because yes, there's some rule there that also you need to, so in the last 5 years you need to have stayed in Spain for at least 4 years and 6 months or something like that. I mean, of course they count that you go for holidays abroad and so on and so forth. So that's why they give you this time. And yeah, I was talking a lot with my lawyers. You know, I had to write the whole Excel sheet of all my travels to see how many days I was abroad and whatnot. So I applied it during I was staying there, so that this way I would get the permit, and then if I continue working in Germany, it wouldn't affect it anymore.
Okay,
because it would count toward the next 5 years and so on.
Nice. Yeah, we are kind of completing the time somehow. You know that I ask a couple of questions at the end. Like, I think the first one would be, do you have any recommendations for, I will turn these two questions into separate ones, let's say like this. I think there is one that it's more generic, like what you would recommend to anyone who wants to become an expat, to immigrate to another country, to move around the world, let's say like this. And the second one, which I think it's also interesting, if you have any recommendations, because I know that a lot of people from the East move from the Balkans, people from Greece, people from Macedonia, from Albania. There is a kind of a big migration still happening. It happened a lot during the last years. There is any specific recommendation that you would give to people from Macedonia, for example, from your country, that you could give to them in terms of moving? So more like a generic one, more one specific.
Well, yes. First of all, I would encourage everyone to experience living abroad at least for once in their life. You know, depending on your possibilities and your opportunities, it can be different. But I don't know, if you're still studying, maybe you can do an Erasmus exchange. If you can afford it, you can do a language course abroad. Or if you work for an international company, maybe you can ask within your company to be placed somewhere abroad for some period of time, like it happened with us when we moved to Germany. So, because in the end, it really changed you, and I think it's an experience that everybody should live, and I would really encourage you. And I'm happy to say that I already have some friends that I've made in Spain that were inspired by me and decided to move and now are living abroad. Even though it's bad for me, because out of the few friends I have here, they to have them end up living abroad, it's...
But you have a house somewhere. That's always the benefit of that. You can travel
yes
for free. Let's say like this, more or less.
Yeah, definitely. So that's would be my words of encouragement. And as for advice, well, I can give you a lot of advice. I mean, what helped me is, of course, it helps a lot if you know the language or if you're willing to learn the language. You know, it will help you fit in. It will help you in the day-to-day. Even though as an expat, you will end up hanging out with a lot of foreigners, and of course, English would most probably be the main language. But for example, if you are Spanish and you go abroad, don't make the mistake of just hanging out with Spanish people, please.
Yep.
Because this is a mistake that Spanish people make when they go to Erasmus, for sure, I know. And
not to Erasmus, you see a lot of... I mean, in Frankfurt, you can feel that also, like there is small groups of people who's only met with their own people in terms of nationality because of, language-wise, it's easier because whatever, but it really doesn't bring any value on top of exchanging or to discover new things, that's for sure.
Yes, and well, if you want to move and by getting a new job somewhere abroad, then my advice would be to work on your resume, and especially work on your social connections. Like, even if you're not already living abroad, you can still make important connections with people from abroad. You can follow them on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. You can try going on conferences and meet with people. And then, because I think that the best way to get opportunities is through contacts, through people, so, and then the rest of the things will just follow.
Yeah, it's important to have someone, like, I mean, you never know where it will fall the next opportunity, let's say like this. So contacts are important, definitely.
Yeah.
There is the last question that I normally ask, which is about the promotion of projects, either personal or just giving the opportunity to the guest of the podcast, if there is anything that they want to promote, to use the channel. I think you commented already. I don't remember exactly the name. Sorry, the students.
Yes, student organization. Yes, it's called IAST. International Association for Exchange of Students for Technical Experiences. Yes. I mean, it's true. It's meant for students to be able to go abroad and do an internship in a different country. But if you're someone also that have a company that does work in engineering, you can reach out to this organization and offer to host a student in your company.
Exactly. Definitely.
So, it's a great experience for the company and for the student as well.
I mean, it's also a networking way, no? What you were just saying, making contacts, bringing people. You've seen Alex, you've seen how many countries he has visited, how many places he has worked experience-wise. So, and he started through exchange of that. So definitely we will put this in the comments and the recommendations of this episode. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today and for being my guest and seeing each other again. I mean, has been a COVID time, a little bit difficult to connect and to see each other after Germany and some months in quarantine and everything. I hope we see each other soon in Barcelona then.
Yes, thank you for having me on the show, and let's hope we have a gin tonic in person soon.
In person, exactly. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.
Salud.